Hello and welcome back to Weekly Buying Tips. I'm Dean Berman from Berman Buys. Today we're going to talk about the different types of first home buyers. In my opinion, there are 5 different types of first home buyers. The first one is the timeline first home buyer, the one that needs to buy a property in as soon as possible. These are often determined by a changing employment situation or borrowing capacity, ending rental leases, changing moving arrangements, or an incentive such as a government grant. Second, being an investor who wants to make the most prudent choice with their first property. These first-home buyers usually rent where they want to live and invest in locations that they believe will achieve superior capital growth and give them a solid rental return at the same time. The third buyer is the owner-occupier, usually needing to upsize or downsize due to changing family numbers, either shrinking or growing. Oftentimes the amenity, the lifestyle, work proximity, and schooling will have a much higher impact on decision making, creating a much more emotional process for this owner-occupier first home buyer. Fourth first home buyer or type of first home buyer is the Australian permanent resident or citizen living overseas. They generally want a base in Australia, in the future, if they ever come and move back in Australia, whilst providing a solid rental return and potential growth during that period of time. They are a mixture of investor and future owner-occupier. The fifth and final type of first-home buyer is the buyer that may have actually never considered buying their first property and may have just fortunately had some sort of inheritance or had a change of fortunes and a lump sum of money has suddenly become available to them. And these type of buyers will oftentimes want to occupy the very first place because they've never been able to occupy their principal place of residence that they personally owned before. Whereas some of them might want to look at it more as an investment and look to make that money work hard for them and invest in an area where they can get some sort of return and solid capital growth into the future. While sometimes first home buyers will fuse multiple sections together, such as wanting to buy in a really timely manner, being an owner-occupier, but at the same time having a view on the future investment potential of the property to ensure that their money works hard while still living in the property during that period of time. So we now understand the 5 different types of first home buyers. And if I could give 3 pieces of advice for first home buyers, these would be: if you plan on living in the property for a long time, it might make sense to buy a place that will actually make your life better rather than just looking at the future potential of the investment. It's down to the age-old debate of happiness versus money. Which one wins? Personal decision, but oftentimes it can make sense to sometimes go for the happiness. A property can be changed internally in an almost infinite amount of ways, but the location cannot. If you're deciding to buy your first property as an investment now, or saving up your deposit for a future dream home, consider what you can get for both now and whether it would make sense to wait for the future and save up that deposit, i.e. investing now and hopefully building up that deposit, or waiting and putting the money in the bank, and also maybe comparing the growth rates and the potential returns that you might get from both and weighing up the pros and cons.